Mel Kiper released his mock draft 2.0. I want to take a look at it, give you my thoughts on all 32 picks. We'll go into some of the highlights of the players, and then I'll give you my thoughts on what he did specifically for the New York Jets at number 10.
Jets, Jets!
All right, so we are taking a look at another mock draft. This one is going to be Mel Kiper's 2.0 mock draft. This was released just before the scouting combine, so I'm sure things are going to change a little bit as we've seen workouts and whatnot done. If you guys have not done so already, make sure you sign up for the mock draft contest. Link in the description down below. Winner is going to get a jersey of their choosing. Doesn't have to be a Jet jersey. It could be any jersey you want. But if you want to join, it's free to join. It's a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it the last few years. But let's hop into this mock 2.0 from Mel Kiper. Should be able to breeze through this. First pick, going to be Caleb Williams. Kiper says, as we approach the one-year anniversary of the Bears trading the number 1 overall pick to Carolina, I continue to believe they will keep this selection and move on from Justin Fields. It's about restarting the quarterback clock and taking one of the best all-around prospects in the past decade. Williams has a rare skill set in terms of arm strength, accuracy, decision-making, and mobility. Chicago will need to continue to help him. The organization could add a playmaker with the number 9 pick and is also has a ton of cap space to make some free agency moves. So Caleb Williams has basically been penciled in as the number 1 overall quarterback in this class for quite some time. I still struggle with the idea of like the Bears fans like fully embracing Caleb after we've heard like little rumblings of Caleb maybe not necessarily wanting to go to the Bears. We did hear during the combine that he's like, oh, you know, the Bears have a good team. They were 8-9 last year or 7-10 or whatever their record was. There's, you know, you don't normally have the number 1 overall pick when you're, you know, a halfway decent team. So, you know, he could end up there. I think the off-script stuff still gives me a little bit of a concern, but he's been penciled in for number 1 for a while now, so this is not too shocking. At number 2, he's got the Commanders taking Jayden Daniels. So I actually like Jayden Daniels the most out of all the quarterbacks in this class. He has the highest ceiling for me at 6'4", 200, I think, was he 210 pounds? Not a lot of weight. Not a lot of weight for someone of that stature, which means he could add weight on. He's got to get a little bit smarter. I don't like how he does not slide or get out of bounds. He's taken too many big hits that will hurt him in the NFL. But Kiper says, I'm sticking with Daniels here over Drake May from North Carolina, though it's tight. Several NFL teams have May over Daniels on their boards 2 months out from the start of round 1. I love Daniels' fit with the new Commanders offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, who will run a wide open offense and put his quarterback in the best position to succeed. Washington already has 2 really good young wideouts in Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. So Daniels and Kingsbury would be able to start very quickly. Daniels has made a massive leap during his time at LSU, developing into a top-tier passer and runner. I can't wait to watch him at the next level. You guys have heard me. I really like Jayden Daniels a lot. I think I like this pick a lot more for the Commanders because it means he's not falling to the Patriots at number 3. At number 3, he's got Drake May coming off the board to the New England Patriots. As I wrote in my mock 1.0, quarterback is the Patriots' biggest hole this offseason. The organization can't move forward and get back to competing in the AFC East titles until it gets the position right. Mac Jones had a solid rookie season in 2021, but regressed badly the last 2 seasons. He could be traded or released over the next few months. I think he winds up being a backup quarterback for them for like a year. I don't know. Apparently the locker room was like not too thrilled with Mac Jones. So unless New England takes a surprise run at one of the veterans on the market, Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, who is likely to be released, May makes too much sense. Sure, he's the 3rd passer off the board in this class, but he might be number 1 pick in many other drafts. He's number 5 on my big board, has special touch and downfield passes, and can deliver every throw with precision. Of the 3 quarterbacks at the top of this draft, I think I prefer May to go to the Patriots more than any of these other teams. Exciting quarterback prospect. Again, it's tough to get the quarterback right, so just got to hope that they swing and miss at the top here. Number 4, he's got the Cardinals selecting Marvin Harrison Jr. If the first 3 picks break this way, I suspect the Cardinals will rush their selection to the podium. Harrison is an elite wide receiver prospect with all the tools to be a future All-Pro, but unlike the usual drafts, when most trades up into the top 5 are for quarterback, I wonder if teams might try to trade up for Marvin Harrison Jr. Would Arizona be able to pass up, for instance, a 2025 first-round pick to move down 9 spots with Las Vegas? I'm not saying it would be able to get that haul, but I'd have to consider the deal if it did. The looming question is, are the Cardinals wide receiver away from contending? Luckily, it doesn't have to be decided today. Harrison would slot in perfectly as Kyler Murray's number 1 target, and Arizona also has the Texans' first-round pick at number 27 as well. This has kind of been a popular pick for a lot of people. Marvin Harrison Jr. consistently ends up being the number one non-quarterback taken off the board, so I can't say I'm too surprised with this particular selection he has here. At number 5, he's got the Chargers taking J.C. Latham, which I completely disagree with. I don't think this is going to be the pick for the Chargers. This is the first one that kind of gives me the I don't buy that. Basically, because the Chargers defensive line coach is from Notre Dame, and he was quoted at Notre Dame saying Joe Alt's going to be a first-round pick at some point, and now they have a pick where they could take Joe Alt. Not that he's going to have overwhelming influence over the course of the decision-making process for the Chargers, but you would think a guy that knows Joe Alt and would go against him being the D-line coach and the O-line, consistently, if he's speaking highly of Alt, you probably want to stand to pay attention to him here. Now, as far as what Kiper says, here's a big, literally, deviation from my debut mock draft when I projected the Chargers would take tight end Brock Bowers out of Georgia in January. It was before they had hired Jim Harbaugh as their new head coach, and we should know from Harbaugh's time with the 49ers and at Michigan that he wants to build through the line, which means starting with 300-pounders, the 360-pound Latham, who actually weighed in at 342 pounds. I got to update the slide. Started 27 games at right tackle in college, where he could slot in for the Chargers. So I guess that's the argument, right? They already got Slater on the left-hand side. If you draft the best possible right tackle at 5, that could make a lot more sense. This is where a bit of a reach in my rankings. Latham is number 22 on my board, but he's a nasty run blocker, which is why I see him as a fit in that offense. He'd perform great as bookend tackles to Rashawn Slater. Look, I've got J.C. Latham higher on my board than I did prior to the Combine. I have him as offensive tackle number 2, so it's not that far off from a value perspective. I just would have thought you'd go with Joe Alt and just have him move positions. But if you want the best right tackle, you could argue it's Latham right here. So maybe it's not as crazy as I would have thought. At number 6, you have the Giants selecting Rome Odunze. This is definitely going to be a little bit more of a matchup issue as opposed to maybe going with the Neighbors. I like Neighbors more than Odunze, but the Giants, I can totally see this type of pick coming. Kiper says the Giants are coming off a disastrous season in which they ranked 29th in points scored per game on offense, 14 points per game, 30th in yards per play, 4.5, and 32nd in sack rate per drop back. That's 12.8% of the time he dropped back, got a sack. That was with only 6 games from Daniel Jones, though, and the quarterback should be recovered from his knee injury at the start of the 2024 season. So what's best may be able to make sure that doesn't happen again, get Jones some help. There have been too many number 2s and number 3 wide receivers. Odunze caught 92 passes for 1,600 yards and 13 touchdowns last season. Could be their number 1 guy. So I really like Odunze. I like Odunze more for the Jets. And if you need a slightly bigger framed wide receiver, his contested catch and deep ball catching is absolutely electric. So if the Giants go this route, they're getting a legit number 1 wide receiver. I really, really like Odunze. I just think I would have gone Neighbors in this spot here, but you're probably splitting hairs. It's probably a flavor of the week type thing. At number 7, they have the Titans going Joe Alt, offensive tackle out of Notre Dame. This has been a popular pick because the Titans need a tackle, but we've heard some rumors that maybe they're looking to trade down or get a weapon, so maybe this goes a different direction here. I'm hoping that's the case because I would love to see Joe Alt fall to the New York Jets at number 10. Tennessee is a team to watch for trade down. It has multiple holes on their roster, including cornerback, wide receiver, defensive line. General manager Ran Carthon could try to acquire future draft capital. The organization already is without a 3rd-round pick this year because of the move up to get the quarterback Will Levis a year ago. If the Titans are staying put, they could do much worse than Alt. My top-ranked tackle in this class, he's one of the most consistent pass blockers I've studied in the last few years. He just doesn't get beaten often and would give them my top 2 offensive linemen in back-to-back drafts with Peter Skoronski going at number 11 just 1 year ago. So I like Joe Alt a lot. He's my number 1 offensive tackle. At 6'9" is what he came in at the Combine. Oh, this dude's moving too. He got a 5.05 40-yard dash. This is a home run selection here. I feel like he's got to be the number 1 player off the board for the O-line. At number 8, he's got the Falcons taking Dallas Turner. The Falcons are the most interesting team this offseason with regard to the quarterback position. The decision will define the new coach, Raheem Morris's tenure, because this franchise has the skill position talent to immediately compete in the NFC South. The problem here is I'm not ready to move J.J. McCarthy into the top 10. So Atlanta would either have to trade up, sacrificing much-needed draft capital, or reach a little bit for a McCarthy or a Penix Jr., who has a 2nd-round grade in my rankings. This team might be better served using significant chunk of its draft capital cap space on Kirk Cousins. I would agree on that. I think a veteran quarterback makes a ton of sense for the Falcons. We're hearing a lot of smoke about Justin Reed ending up in Atlanta. I do like that as well. It would be significantly cheaper for them. They don't have to give up as much money. But if you have a bunch of cap space, which I think the Falcons do, it might make sense to go with a higher price veteran here. But if you give up a second-round pick for Fields, and he might be your guy anyway, I like the grit that Fields shows. So I'll stick with the top edge rusher in this draft class for the Falcons, who ranked 32nd in pass rush win rate, 30.9% last season. Turner had 10 sacks last year, taking his game to a new level. As the Crimson Tide's top defender, he has a really high ceiling. He's really good covering running backs and tight ends as well. So very much like this pick for the Falcons. At number 9, he's got the Bears taking Malik Nabers. And this is really where I see the final third wide receiver coming off the board. I don't think they get past the Bears at this particular point in time. He says, we're back around to the Bears, whom I have quarterback Caleb Williams at number 1. I thought about the offensive line, though it might be too early, or might be a little early for Troy Fautanu from Washington, the best guard in the class. I also considered cornerback, though Chicago could franchise tag and sign a big long-term extension for Jalen Johnson, which would plug that hole. And since this is a strange year for edge rushers, Latu has medical questions that should be answered at the combine, and I don't have a top 15 grade on Jared Verse from Florida State. Let's instead select a dynamic playmaker to make Williams' life a little bit easier. Neighbor had 89 receptions, 1,569 yards, and 14 touchdowns last season, with 1,000 of those yards and 12 of those scores coming from when he lined up in the slot. That versatility should suit coordinator Shane Waldron's offense. I have 4 wideouts in the top 11 of my rankings, and all 4 would likely be top 10 picks in any other draft. I do like Malik Nabers a lot. I think this makes a lot of sense for the Chicago Bears. So given the way this board has broken for the New York Jets and how things could potentially shake out, I feel like I would be going with either a Funga or a Olu Fashanu in this particular spot. Now, it depends what happens in free agency, because if you really like AVT at one of your tackle spots and you sign a veteran to plug in at left tackle, now it opens you up for a weapon. And with the top 3 receivers off the board, I can totally see this pick being made, and that's the New York Jets selecting Brock Bowers, the tight end out of Georgia. What Kiper has to say for him. How far could Bowers fall? My guy, Field Yates, got a lot of stick for slotting him into the Seahawks at number 16. The reality is tough to find an ideal spot for Bowers in the top 10 because of the depth of the quarterback, offensive line, and wide receiver classes. Each of these positions is valued higher than tight end, so while I love him as a prospect, he's number 8 on my big board. It might take a trade for him to land within the top 10. That is, unless the Jets take him here. Think about it. Aaron Rodgers is returning. They have a void at the position, and they might jump at the opportunity to add a pass-catching tight end with rare run-after-the-catch ability. There's a natural fit, and yes, New York has bigger holes on the offensive tackle, but what if it doesn't totally love its options here? I always say strictly drafting for need will get teams in trouble. So even with Olu Fashanu on the board from Penn State, I'm going with Brock Bowers and the Jets connection. So I do like the idea of adding Brock Bowers because it gives you that third elite weapon at a different level of the offense. You have Garrett Wilson and you have Breece Hall already in that mid-tier range that could work the seams. You got Brock Bowers. This is a home run selection for the New York Jets. You just have to make sure you solidify your offensive line in other means, because it's not going to mean a whole lot if you can't keep Aaron Rodgers standing upright. Now, you could argue that the tight end working in the seam, Breece Hall out of the back, and Garrett Wilson cutting so fast, you may be able to get the ball out very fast, and that might neutralize some of the need on offensive line. But I like this pick a lot for the New York Jets here with Brock Bowers at number 10. At number 11, you got Jared Verse coming off the board to the Minnesota Vikings. I almost went corner here. Teron Arnold, Cooper DeJean, Nate Wiggins are my top 3, but I wonder whether this instead could fill the spot for edge rusher. If Danielle Hunter leaves in free agency, Minnesota would have a massive hole to fill. I believe Davenport is a free agent as well over there. Verse could be an asset on all 3 downs. He has 18 sacks over 2 seasons at FSU, where he can also developed into a solid run defender. He was inconsistent at times, but he has some savvy. He has become a savvy pass rusher. I'm quite curious, or really curious, to see how he tests with on-field drills at the Combine. I'll be honest, I did not pay close attention to Verse at the Combine, so I do not know how he actually performed there. I'd have to look into that. But I've had him slotted in for the Vikings, or I've had the Vikings taking a defensive end for a while, specifically for this reason. Danielle Hunter, Davenport going to be off the roster. I think it would make a ton of sense. You're going to get the number 2 guy, arguably your top guy on your board, because there's just so much versatility or so much variation with these top edge rushers here. So I think this is a solid move for the Vikings. At number 12, you got the next quarterback coming off the board. That is the Broncos selecting J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan. Now, the hope is that he will get traded up for in the top 10 of the draft, because the New York Jets desperately need some playmakers and offensive linemen to fall down to them. So hopefully one of these teams that are taking one of those positions in front of us right now trade out, and then one of them falls to the New York Jets. I'm following my coworkers and slotting in a quarterback to the Broncos. Why? This might be the only chance to add a high-ceiling signal caller prospect this offseason and not mortgage the future to do it. They're almost certainly going to cut Russell Wilson, leaving a void on the depth chart. They don't have the cap space to try and add a veteran. Moving up from number 12 might require a future first-rounder, and that would hamper them down the road. So why not take a shot on McCarthy? Look, this would be a reach in my rankings, but I could see why a team in the top 15 would talk itself into McCarthy. He has an intriguing skill set as a passer. He will test extremely well during the combine workouts and impress coaches and front office executives in interviews. He wasn't asked to carry the Wolverines, but his arm the past season, with his arm the past 2 seasons, but that doesn't mean he couldn't do it. Sure, McCarthy needs some refinement, but Sean Payton could get the best out of him in Denver. I also speculate that Sean Payton probably likes the fact that John Harbaugh coached McCarthy the last few years, and there's probably some degree of NFL preparedness that he would have inherently gotten from his time with Harbaugh there. So I actually do like this pick. It's going to be a common pick, I think, for the Broncos at this point. Just hope they trade up for him as well. Number 13, Byron Murphy, the second coming off the board here, first defensive tackle. Like Denver, Las Vegas. Oh, no, sorry. That is not the right. Oh, no, that is the right pick. 13. I'm all over the place. Vegas is likely moving on from its veteran quarterback, as Jimmy Garoppolo was benched when Antonio Pierce took over as interim head coach. And like Denver, Vegas also might need to go a different route to adding a 2024 signal caller. So with Pierce hired as the full-time coach, let's look to improve his defense. Now, there are rumors that the Raiders want to trade up to try and go get Jaden Daniels, who Pierce overlapped with at Arizona State. They were very close friends. So I could absolutely see that going that direction as well. Murphy was the highest, has the highest pass rush upside of any of the interior defensive linemen in this class. He had 5 sacks and 33 pressures last season, a huge improvement over his 2022 year of 1 sack and 14 pressures. At 308 pounds, he could play as the Raiders' three technique tackle, wrecking havoc in both the run and pass schemes. Max Crosby had 14.5 sacks last season, but number 7 overall pick Tyree Wilson disappointed as a rookie, putting up just 3.5 with Murphy on the interior. Crosby and Wilson could get more space to get after quarterbacks on the edge. I could see this pick being made. I've penciled in the Raiders more for offensive line at this particular spot, and I would think you would want to go with a Fashanu or a Fuaga here to more solidify that, especially if you're going to think about adding another quarterback. But Byron Murphy, good player. That's not where I would have gone with the Raiders selection here. At number 14, you have the Saints taking Olu Fashanu, the number 2 left tackle on the board. Trevor Penning, a first-round pick in 2022, has started just 6 games in 2 seasons and was one of the league's worst pass-blocking left tackles when he did play in 2023. Could the Saints decide he's not going to be their left tackle in the future? It shouldn't be out of the question, especially if they have salary cap issues. If there's not an edge rusher or wide receiver that they like available here, they should take Fashanu, who has the potential to be the guy in New Orleans. Fashanu, who turned 21 in December, allowed a single sack and 8 total pressures in 21 career starts. He often dominated edge rushers. Yeah, he graded out real well. And at the combine, the only thing that was like of note of his was his hand size was incredibly small, which I don't know necessarily means a crazy ton for offensive linemen. Maybe it means a little bit more in the run game if you think smaller hands means less surface area to like actually grab onto a defender to run block with them. But I think this is a solid move, especially with Ramczyk always having banged up knees. Maybe they move on from him and Trevor Penning ends up sliding over that way in some capacity. They could shuffle things around. I could totally see this for the Saints. At number 15, first cornerback coming off the board, Terrion Arnold going to the Colts. Indianapolis got a solid cornerback play from rookies Juju Brents, a second-rounder last year, and Jalen Jones, a seventh-rounder last season. But it has to keep improving there. Frankly, the Colts need talent need a talent injection on their entire defense, which is why I could see them picking the best available defender here. 6-foot Arnold picked off 5 passes and allowed just 4 catches on 20-plus yards as the nearest defender in coverage last season. Minnesota has a clear void at the position and could be a day one starter. Minnesota, I think they mean Indianapolis. I don't know why it auto-corrected to Minnesota there, but that's a little funky, unless he's copy-pasting from a different point of view. Cornerback for the Colts, I did have them going that route. It's just a matter of which cornerback you really like. 𝐀𝐟𝐼R𝐥𝐢𝐸. Do you like Nate Wiggins? Do you like Quinyon Mitchell, who blew up the combine? I could see any of those picks as well for the Colts. I think it makes a lot of sense for them. At 16, you got the Seahawks going guard Troy Fautanu out of Washington. I've had them going defender in my last few mock drafts because of their defensive head coach, but interior offensive line. And actually, his arm's graded out longer than I would have thought, so maybe he does end up being a tackle at the next level too. Okay, so guard might not be the most exciting position for a mock draft, but I can assure you the Seahawks fans would be pretty happy with Fautanu, who could stay near where he went to school. That's because he's a fun offensive lineman prospect to watch on tape. He has excellent feet and plays hard on every snap. Fautanu started 28 games at left tackle for the Huskies, but I could see a future on the interior because of his 6'4" frame. With Evan Brown, Damian Lewis, and Phil Haynes all free agents, Seattle will have holes to fill along the interior of the offensive line. And Seattle ranked 28th in rushing yards per game last season with 92.9. Surely, new coordinator Ryan Grubb wants to see upgrades here. Fautanu would give this offense an instant boost. All right, so you know what? Maybe they have more interior holes than I was thinking, or more holes on the offensive line than I was thinking, so offensive line could make a lot more sense for the Seahawks here. Number 17, they have Quinyon Mitchell, who would be my top corner, I think, on my board right now. I understand going Terrion Arnold earlier due to the strength of schedule and everything along those lines, but we got the Toledo prospect here. I thought about offensive line. The Jags ranked 29th in pass blocking win rate, just 50% last season. Wide receiver with this pick. But let's look on the defense instead. I wrote earlier that it's a strange draft, and that's especially true with the cornerbacks. There's no league consensus on the number 1 guy or the number 2 guy or the number 3 guy, and I don't see any going in the top 10 picks as of now, although we've seen before the blazing 40 times at the combine could move defensive backs up. Mitchell, though, lit up the Senior Bowl practices a few weeks ago, showing his college stats are no fluke. He's rising. He has shut down players for the Rockets, picking off 6 passes while allowing quarterbacks to complete just 35.2% of their throws against him in coverage over the past 2 seasons. As I wrote when I added him in my big board, he didn't allow a single touchdown in coverage in 2023. So we talked about him at the Senior Bowl. The guy's been dominant, and he also ran, like a 2.33 40-yard dash at the combine. This guy is probably going to be the top cornerback taken, I would think. That would be my betting favorite. But like Kiper says, all the cornerbacks are kind of like a flavor of the week. Like, you could get arguably the best cornerback first, or the best cornerback as like the 4th or 5th guy off the board. It's really fascinating to see just how much variation there is with this position group. At number 18, you've got the Bengals taking Taliese Funga, the right tackle from Oregon State. The Bengals are one of the teams that will be helped by a deep offensive tackle class, as there could be as many as 8 going in round 1, with Orlando Brown Jr. locked into the left-hand side. Their hole is on the right, as Jonah Williams will be a free agent. Funga could place there from day one. He started 25 games at right tackle in college. He has a tenacious run blocker at 6'6", 335 pounds. He allowed just 1 sack over the last 2 seasons. I really liked Taliese Funga. If the Jets made him their selection at number 10 overall, I'd be tickled pink with that as well. We've been connected to them a bunch of times, But as mentioned, Jonah Williams probably leaving in free agency. This just makes a ton of sense for the Bengals at this point in time. Number 19, Rams taking 𝐀𝐟𝐼R𝐥𝐢𝐸, the cornerback / safety from Iowa. 4th round pick Colby Durant was a revelation as a rookie in 2022, but he was inconsistent last season. And Darion Kendrick, taken in round 6 in the same draft, didn't take a step forward either. So while the Rams got a resurgence season from Ahkello Witherspoon, the veteran is a free agent, meaning there are big question marks in the secondary. I see corner as their single biggest need. DeJean, who would be LA's first round pick since 2016. Yes, really. is my number one cornerback ranked. He's recovering from a broken leg suffered in November, but he still has 7 interceptions the past 2 seasons. That'd be a huge for a defense that's forced 15 takeaways in 2023, which ranked 30th in the league. DeJean isn't expected to work out at the combine, but I see him as a day 1 selection. So we've seen him go pretty high. I've seen him go as high as like number 8 to the Falcons as well. So I actually didn't realize he had a broken leg. That's something that I missed in my analysis of him. But hey, I could definitely see this. He's a versatile piece for the secondary, and that's something that I think the Rams could benefit from here. Number 20, got the Steelers going Nate Wiggins, who pulled up heard a pop during his 40. So this may knock him out of the first round if there's anything significant going on with that. But until we know more, Nate Wiggins going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I went cornerback in my mock 1.0, and I don't see any reason to change, though the Steelers just cut starting center Mason Cole and will have to replace him. Wiggins could be a formidable pairing with Joey Porter Jr., who came in the second half of last season. Wiggins allowed just 4.2 yards per attempt as the nearest defender in coverage last season, taking a leap forward in 2022 when he allowed 6.1. At 6'2", 185 pounds, he has a great blend of size and speed with 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and a sack. He showed up all over the Tigers' 2023 tape. So that one makes sense a lot for me with the Steelers. I did have them taking Amarius Mims, thinking they would bookend their tackles, but maybe they're looking to solidify that secondary a little bit more. Number 21, he's got Graham Barton going to the Dolphins. Now, this is listed as a center pick for Graham Barton. Barton has played all the offensive lines in college, or all the positions on the offensive line in college. I would go with Jackson Powers Johnson here over Graham Barton, but maybe they value the positional flexibility. I just think JPJ playing 1 year at center and dominating the way he did gives you that same sort of flexibility with guard center anyway. But Graham Barton going to the Miami Dolphins. I noticed in my debut mock that the Dolphins have decisions to make with free agent offensive linemen Connor Williams and Robert Hunt. The organization might get priced out of bringing them both back. Miami cleared some cap space by releasing Emmanuel Ogbah and cornerback Xavier Howard, but it has other holes to fill. Not to mention Connor Williams tore his ACL towards the end of last year, so he may not be playing for a hefty part of the season anyway. With Barton, the Dolphins would get a veteran lineman who spent the past 3 seasons as the Blue Devils' starting left tackle. He started 5 games at center as a true freshman in 2020, though, and that's where I think he could be a rookie starter. At 6'5", Barton is extremely consistent on snap-to-snap basis. He's technically sound as a run and pass blocker. I debated between Barton and Jackson Powers Johnson, my other top-ranked center, but Barton would be getting more first-round buzz if he hadn't missed a few games to lower body injuries. Interesting. So he still takes him over Jackson Powers Johnson. That's still, I don't agree with it, but I see what his rationale might be, I guess. Eagles, Latu, outside linebacker from UCLA. This week is huge for Latu, who medically retired from football due to neck injuries when he was at Washington in 2021. Will NFL teams be satisfied with his medical reports? It's not exactly unheard of. Jalen Phillips in round 1, picked in 2021, medically cleared when he was at UCLA before transferring to Miami. But it's why these pre-combine mock drafts are tough, because everything Latu did on the field for the Bruins, he had 112 pressures, 23.5 sacks the last 2 seasons. It won't matter if teams flag his medicals and take him off their board. Based on what I saw on tape from 2022, however, Latu is a first-rounder. As for the Eagles, you watched the end of their season, right? Their pass rush really struggled. They got just 1 sack and 10 total tackles from the 2023 first-round pick, Nolan Smith. I still believe in Smith's talent, and adding Latu would give their front 7 another toolsy edge rusher. So their edge rushers are starting to get a little bit up there in age anyway. I know Reddick is looking to possibly get moved, and then you have Barnett, who's getting up there in age as well. Does Fletcher Cox come back? Defensive line could make a lot of sense for the Eagles. Or, who knows, now that Jason Kelce has retired, Jackson Powers Johnson here could make a crazy ton of sense for them as well if they want to continue with the tush push. At number 23, he's got the Texans going Tyler Guyton, the right tackle out of Oklahoma. Houston is without its own first-round selection due to a trade-up for Will Anderson Jr. from last April, but it has this pick as part of the Deshaun Watson deal in 2022. And even though the Texans are coming off a season that featured a surprising playoff win, I see clear needs for them in the front seven on defense and along the offensive line. So with Jeremy Tunsil holding down the left-hand tackle's position, Guyton could step in at right tackle where he started 14 games for the Sooners. As I wrote my big board rankings, 6'7", 327-pound Guyton is physically what the NFL wants in a future Pro Bowl caliber right tackle. He moves like a tight end. He used to play there. He has a ton of natural talent, although he doesn't have as much experience as the tackles likely being taken ahead of him. For a team that ranked 29th in yards per rush attempt on offense, 3.7 last season, Guyton could be an excellent addition. So I actually have Amarius Mims above Guyton on my list, but both guys have some question marks in terms of their lack of college starts. But this is a guy I think a lot of people will like. He would be in my conversation for the Jets if we wind up trading down as well. Shortly after the Texans make their pick of Tyler Guyton, the Cowboys select right tackle Amarius Mims out of Georgia. Just speaking about him, Mims has even fewer starts than Guyton. He was limited to just 8 over the past 3 seasons because of injuries and draft picks in front of him on the Bulldogs depth chart. But when he did play, he made defenders look silly. Mims at 6'7", he actually measured in at 6'8", 340 pounds, allowed 0 sacks and just a total of 5 pressures across 372 career pass blocks. Will NFL teams be scared of his limited experience, or will they draft him high based on his size and potential? I lean toward the latter because he was good when he was on the field. It's like one of those things with Broderick Jones, too. Broderick Jones looked really good but didn't have a crazy ton of snaps either. Amarius Mims could be the same thing on the opposite side. To make room for Mims, the Cowboys could part ways with longtime tackle Tyron Smith, which is exactly what we heard over the Combine is going to happen. Who's a free agent and have to compete with Terrence Steele on the right-hand side. He played right tackle in college, but has the talent to move to the left-hand side. So I could see Amarius Mims playing left tackle for the Cowboys moving forward. At number 25, you got the Packers selecting Jordan Morgan, the left tackle out of Arizona. Kiper says, I'm squeezing one more offensive tackle into this round one projection. David Bakhtiari hasn't been able to stay on the field since 2020 due to nagging injuries, which means there's a glaring void at left tackle in Green Bay. And I love what Morgan showed over 37 college starts at left tackle. His footwork and pass protection is outstanding. He can stay in front of speedy edge rushers because of his arm length and quickness. He tore his ACL in November of 2022 and was able to start 12 games last season, surrendering 2 sacks, 7 total pressures. Green Bay could benefit from this deep offensive tackle group. Him coming back 1 year after an ACL injury to have the season he had this past year is definitely encouraging. And another potential option, obviously, if the New York Jets wanted to slide down a little bit more, when you start getting into like the Mims and Guyton and Jordan Morgan conversations at tackle, they're a little bit more murky for me from a Jets fan perspective, but this guy's absolutely worth the pick at 25 for the Packers. At 26, you've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting Keon Coleman. Now, I do think this is maybe a little less likely right now because Mike Evans just re-signed for his 2-year, $52 million contract, but that's only 2 years. Chris Godwin only has 1 year left on his deal, so maybe wide receiver still does make sense for them. Tampa Bay won the NFC South and beat the Eagles in the playoffs, but it had some issues on both sides of the ball. An offense that ranked 32nd in yards per rush attempt, run block rate. On defense, it ranked 29th in pass yards allowed per game. So they could lose free agent safety Antoine Winfield Jr. So although I could have gotten offensive line or secondary with this pick, I'm instead thinking towards future wideout. Mike Evans, another free agent who actually just signed, will turn 31 before the season, even if they bring him back. How much longer will he be at the top of his game? In Coleman, they could get a successor, a 6'4" body who excels at contested catch situations. He had 18 touchdowns over the past 2 seasons at Michigan State and Florida State. He's one of the most intriguing prospects at the Combine because I want to see how he tests in the on-field workouts. I really like Keon Coleman. I'm glad to see him slide into the first round here. Now, I guess you could go a bunch of different directions if you're the Bucs. I guess it sort of depends on how you view Baker Mayfield and your ability to win now with him, or if you're trying to maybe replace some guys that may not be on the roster in the future. I could see them go this route. Cardinals selecting defensive lineman, versatile defensive lineman, Darius Robinson can play inside and outside. Very good. Had a great Senior Bowl as well. They say, I moved Robinson into my big board after the Senior Bowl in early February. He was one of the best prospects during practices, showing lightning quick get off at the snap and power in one-on-one pass rush drills, all at 286 pounds. And when I went back to study the 2023 tape, you can see his performance was no fluke. Robinson put up 8.5 sacks and 35 total pressures. He's a fit for teams that run a 4-3 base scheme. Arizona's defense had a rough 2023, ranking 32nd in QBR allowed and rush yards allowed per game, and 30th in terms of sacks. The franchise should devote this second first-round pick, which was acquired from Houston's trade-up last April, to their front seven. So I actually do agree with this pick, even though it's not the position that I had them going in most of my other mock drafts. I have them going with an offensive tackle in their second first-round pick because they took the wide receiver at the top of the draft. But with the way the tackles have fallen in this class, in this particular mock draft, I don't think I would have them go with the next available one, which I think would be the BYU tackle, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is probably a better selection than that at this point, so I'm all right with that. Maybe this turns into a trade out type of scenario situation for someone looking to come up. Maybe a team like the Kansas City Chiefs wants to jump the AFC rivals, Buffalo Bills, for a wide receiver. Maybe we'll see that come down the line. The Bills selecting Brian Thomas Jr. Now, based on this guy's combine, I don't think he's going to be available for the Bills, which makes me feel a little bit better. I like Brian Thomas Jr. a lot. He is a one-year wonder at LSU, but he is a very good one-year wonder, and he's got the size and body frame that I actually want in the Jets to get at wide receiver. This coming from Kiper says, with Gabe Davis likely to sign elsewhere in free agency, the Bills have had to find a number 2 wide receiver in the offseason. The draft might be the best way to do that. There might be 6 or 7 pass catchers taken in round 1 in April. Thomas, who played mostly outside receiver for the Tigers, caught 68 passes, nearly 1,200 yards, and led college football in 17 touchdowns in 2023. At 6'4", he has stellar size combo, and he also ran stupid fast at the combine. So they're very, very elite, very similar to like a Denzel Mims, comparison from a RAS score, but definitely a different player. He also had great hands. The best way to take Buffalo's offense to a new level is to upgrade the other side of Stefon Diggs. I agree with this selection here for the Buffalo Bills, although I don't think he's going to be available at that point in time. He's got the Lions taking cornerback TJ Tampa out of Iowa State. Now, I have not seen him in the first round, so this was a little bit of a reach for me, in my opinion, but I would have gone defense with this pick for the Lions either way. I had them taking Darius Robinson. Obviously, Robinson off the board at this point, so they're going corner. Here's a corner who might be going a little under the radar. Tampa can start for a team from day one. He played nearly 900 covered snaps for the Cyclones and saw every route. After giving up 4 touchdown passes as the nearest defender in coverage in 2021, he allowed only 3 in the next 2 seasons. He made a massive improvement in 2023. Although Tampa had only 3 interceptions in college, I think he could be more productive in the NFL. Detroit, as I wrote in my mock in January, struggled in the secondary last season, ranking 30th in pass yards allowed. This is where you could get an instant starter. So I feel like I would have gone with like a Kool-Aid McKinstry here, but I don't know. If the cornerback class is as muddy as it seems to be, there's no clear consensus guy, maybe TJ Tampa is a good pick here. I'll have to defer to the longtime scout in Mel Kiper. At number 30, you've got the Ravens going with another cornerback, Kamari Lassiter, the cornerback from Georgia. I'd like to see the Ravens make moves on defense this offseason, and they likely will have to use their salary cap space to keep some of their own players, including safety Geno Stone and defensive tackle Justin Madbaluk. I'm so bad with that name. He's getting franchise tagged. Those moves should start at corner, so how about one more in the top 32? Lassiter makes 6 in this draft. Lassiter didn't get beat often last season. He didn't allow a single touchdown as the nearest defender in coverage. And in a total, he allowed 9 receptions for 91 yards. Those are elite numbers. The problem, he had 1 career interception, and that came in 2021. Teams will have questions about his lack of on-ball production. I'm a believer that production from corners can be developed and not worried. I am interested in seeing Lassiter's 40 time in Indianapolis, though. Again, I don't know what he actually wound up running, but I will say this. Cornerback and especially any player from Georgia, especially on the defensive side, they're arguably the best team in all of college football. If you're taking a player at a position of need and you're taking it from that team, it's hard to argue against it. All right, I can see this. Makes sense. Ravens going with a cornerback. 31, 49ers selecting Chop Robinson. It has to be offensive line or edge rusher for the 49ers, right? They need to find young talent so they can use their cap space on their veteran stars. I went offensive tackle in my debut mock, but let's switch to the defense here. San Francisco could take the comp pick for defensive end Chase Young and let him walk in free agency, opening up a spot on the other side of Nick Bosa. That's where I'd slot Robinson in, whose sack numbers were a little disappointing the past 2 seasons, 9.5 and 4 in 2023, but who has the potential to be a star, 6'3", 250 pounds. He's extremely explosive. Give him time with the 49ers D-line coach, Chris 𝐀𝐟𝐟𝐢𝐥𝐢𝐚, and he could be a star. The reason Robinson might be a late round 1 pick is because of that questionable production, but scouts and executives love his tool set. Not to mention the blazing fast 40 time he ran at the combine. So he's going to move up boards. I would say he might even be higher than 31 at this point. But Chop Robinson coming off the board to the 49ers. At pick 32, we got the blazing fast 𝐂𝐟𝐷𝐸 out of Texas. This guy set the all-time record for 40-yard dash times at a 4.21. Just absolutely blazing fast. I don't see a reason to change the position here. The Chiefs have major issues at the receiver last season. Their pass catchers led the league in drops with 38. The word I've used to describe Worthy is electrifying because he has amazing movement skills in space. He can score from any spot on the field. He had 26 receiving touchdowns over 3 seasons at Texas. The one problem with this fit is that Worthy had his share of drops in 2022. He cut those in half last season from 10 to 5. Most of those were concentration drops. I can see why Chiefs fans might worry about a speedy playmaker who has problems holding on to the ball, but Worthy showed last season that he's past the issues. So look, this type of electric playmaker combined with Kelsey and Patrick Mahomes, absolutely electric. Talk about replacing speed of Tyreek Hill with the speed of Xavier Worthy. I don't know if you're going to get the same type of wide receiver, but man, this would be a fun ad for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they'd be pretty happy with this pick. If I were them and I was seeing how the board fell, I would try to get in front of Buffalo to get Brian Thomas Jr. I think that's the better wide receiver for me, but if they like speed and they love them some speed, Xavier Worthy could make a ton of sense here. So guys, let me know your thoughts of this mock draft, Mel Kiper's 2.0. What did you think of the selections? Do you like the Jets getting Brock Bowers? Do you want them to go a different route, a Fungo or a Olu Fashanu at number 10 since those guys fell? What did you think of your team's overall selection, the thought process with it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets. Thank you guys so much for hitting the like and subscribe button on these videos. It goes a long way towards growing the channel. And then occasionally I get sponsors like this. So if you want to help support the sponsor of the channel or maybe just get yourself some cool gear or some good discounts, you can click the link in the description down below. Today's sponsor, 𝐶𝐻, is going to give you 25% off your order using promo code JetsTalk. Link in the description down below. They've got gummies, THC syrup, THC seltzers. I just discovered these things. They are incredible. As someone who has been trying to cut down a little bit of their alcohol consumption and not, maybe feel as crummy the next day, this has been a godsend for me. Keep me nice and calm, cool, and collected, especially with all the hurdles that our Jets throw our way and all the headaches that we got to deal with as fans. So if you guys want to help support the channel, maybe get yourself a little bit of a discount as well. Support the sponsor of the channel, 𝐶𝐻. Thank you so much for watching the show.